Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of our talk about the wool industry in Ireland. I'm Tom Watts, Head of Design with Design and Crafts Council in Ireland, and just want to welcome you today and let you know that we had a fantastic reaction to yesterday's discussion, a lot of positivity around an intelligent discussion on the topic of wool, which is so important to all of the industries that are represented here over the next few days. So I will now introduce you to Rebecca Marsden, who is the moderator for these talks, which are in collaboration with ourselves and the Irish Grown Wool Council. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you for the DCCI for supporting this fantastic event. This is the second of 3 talks that we're delivering over the course of Showcase, focused on the wonders of Irish-grown wool. My name's Rebecca Marsden, and I'm the manager of Forge Design Factory, and I'm a member of the Wool Hub. The Wool Hub has been set up as a research group in support of the Irish Grown Wool Council. And really what the Irish Grown Wool Council is all about is a group of voluntary people coming together, stakeholders from all across the sector, with an all-island approach to look at the relationship, the heritage, the future, and the opportunities that exist around this natural, sustainable, and extremely versatile material. So I'm delighted to be joined by a panel of experts today who are going to speak across areas from textiles to fashion to research and innovation happening in the wool space. I'd like to invite our panel onto the stage now, and they're going to introduce themselves to you. What I'd encourage you to do is to keep an eye on events over today and tomorrow's talk. We're going to be welcoming another expert panel of internationally recognized fashion designers such as Don O'Neill, who we'll be delighted to have with us on stage, and Showcase Overall Award winner Eru will also be joining us tomorrow, along with researchers that are going to be talking around innovation far beyond textiles and fashion into wild and wonderful spaces that we can hope to explore with wool. So thank you very much for joining us here today. Looking forward to kicking off this morning with the panel. So I might start off, Chris, if you'd be happy to give a brief introduction and we'll follow on through. I'll let the panel say a hello and briefly introduce themselves.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. I'm not sure if it's hit 12 o'clock.
We're probably just at afternoon.
Firstly, I'd like to my name is Chris Weiniger. I'm the General Manager of Donegal Yarns. We're based in the southwest of Ireland, the north-southwest. We are about 15 kilometres away from a lot of our customers. I'd like to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank Tom and his team for collaborating with us. It's a common theme for inviting us here today, and look to talking about all the amazing opportunities for the Irish Grown Wool Council.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rosy. I'm CEO of Magee 1866, which is a 5th-generation Irish family business based in County Donegal, and we have a weaving mill and a clothing collection across men, women, home and interiors. And yeah, really delighted to be here, and as Chris said, to really work together on how we can collaborate cross-sectoral to really put Irish wool on the map.
Hello everybody, I'm Alison Gault. I'm a senior lecturer in textile art design and fashion at Belfast School of Art, which is part of Ulster University. I'm an educator. My area is fashion and knit, but I started out as a spinner, a weaver and a knitter, so I've worked with lots of different companies across the UK and Ireland. My research interests are really around circular design, fibres, sustainability, and engineering as well. I'm delighted to be here. It's been a great show. It's wonderful to see the broad range and the wonderful use of wool. And I'm also part of the IGWC. I'm in the Research Hub, and it's great to collaborate with all of these wonderful people. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Carol Feller, and I am the founder of stonestitches.com. which is a one-stop shop for knitters. We would have started out with pattern and teaching, and we've been moving into yarn and clubs and community, as well as knitting education online education. And over the last couple of years, we've started introducing a lot of clubs, and the clubs, one of them would be Celtic Knits Club, another one is the Galway Blanket Club. So we've been trying to make use of Irish products and actually introduce an international audience to what we produce in Ireland, because most of our market is in the US. So it really allows us to tell the story of Irish wool, to educate them about the mills, about what the wool is and what it does well and how you can work with it. So that's who I am.
And Michael.
Hello, my name is Michael Burke. I'm an organic sheep farmer based in Galway. I've also worked in the healthcare sector for over 25 years, and founder of Woolow. Woolow was created from my experience in the healthcare sector and my passion for sustainable farming. I always felt that, particularly working in the healthcare sector, we produce a lot of medications for issues like, respiratory issues, etc. And I always felt sleeping on wool could make a difference. And working with Woolow, we find that the feedback is very positive, and the science supports that, and it's a fantastic project to be involved. It's also fantastic to be involved with some passionate people as well involved in the wool industry. Thank you.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And I think it's similarly to yesterday, we have experience from everything from the land, having representation from organic farmers, right through to beautiful high-end fashion products here. So really excited to go on the journey with you all and talk through the potential to engage with Irish-grown wool. And I suppose coming to you, Chris, as somebody who engages across a large client base and explores the uses and the innovations in Irish-grown wool. And in the coming days, you'll be jetting off to Pittifalati and seeing the latest in yarn innovation and technology and what's being used across the world. And I think for myself as a fashion and textile designer, it's always been one of those fascinating things, yarn technology and the innovation that we can create at that stage. And wool, as we discussed yesterday, and as we'll, I suppose, evidence today and demonstrate, can be used across so many different applications. And part and parcel of that is understanding how we can blend this yarn in order for it to operate and function in different ways. And you've seen that through some of the product development that you've worked on, and you might share a little bit around that opportunity to blend, to optimize the Irish-grown wool.
Yeah, so I suppose that to start off, I think the whole heritage and the provenance of textile industry in southwest Donegal, and going back into the early sort of 1800s, it was with limited access to transportation, it was the cottage industry, and that's really where the industry today has come from, and it would have been 100% Irish wool then. Obviously, as international markets and expanding, and the world has got so much smaller that the competition, and wool is a global, worldwide commodity, traded, and obviously in the cottage industry, it was so self-sufficiency. The wool was been hand spun, and that's where the beautiful Donegal net has come from. The short staple fibre, which rolling on the machine through the hand, and the hand spinning from the original drop spindle. So as the sort of the world got smaller, the competition and the meat versus the wool. So when I came into the industry in Donegal 18 years ago, my first thing was, well, are we using Irish wool here? And the answer was no. And why not? I did come from, I hate to admit it, from the manufacturing knitwear using synthetic and wool blends. So I'm now known by others as the wool man, by a lot of my family and friends. And to start this, we benchmarked the British Wool Marketing Board. It was 100%, they have the brand, 100% British wool. Then you've got the British Wool blend. So we looked at that and identified, okay, starting point is look at our existing product and how can we integrate and get Irish wool into the supply chain again. So we started with one product, and there are lots of other natural fibers, bast fibers that can be used. We've done some research work with Alison using hemp, and it's all about sort of biodegradable, renewable, and you know, the word sustainability is just not about the fiber, it's about the community, the heritage, the provenance, and you know, we're very proud that the company, you know, with the support of Uders and the Giltra, the takeover, the foresight from 4 investors coming in 2006 to see that somebody believed and had a vision of where we could be. So 12 people on the shop floor, and today we have over 60. And it's just a pleasure to see all the combinations of merino wool, Irish wool, blends integrated into the amazing product that's made here and been on display to international customers.
Absolutely, yeah, a fantastic, truly a showcase of what it can be and what it can do. And part and parcel, I think, of you know, what you spoke to there in terms of a collective vision and an energy and collaboration, I suppose, thought lines that come together to move something on in a positive direction. And part of what you look to do, Carol, is really foster those communities around making and creating, and your own background as a structural engineer, I think, lends itself to how you, I suppose, communicate the patterns, the clarity, and the structure that are core to how people engage with stolen stitches. You might share a little bit about what you've learned from your community of makers and how they've engaged with the product, because it's very active from what I've seen, that lovely way of exchanging and learning through community.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you said, I started off as an engineer, and I think that actually is the core of everything I do. I tend to approach things very practically. I started a little bit textile design and then swapped over to engineering, so I've got both sides that will come together. So I enjoy the design, but also thinking about the practicality of what you're doing. But when I started back, first of all, one of the first books I had done was in 2010, Contemporary Irish Knits, which took a tour of the mills that were spinning yarn for hand knitting in Ireland, and looking through and then just working with the actual yarns they were producing, looking at how the colours were blended, you know, whether they were Irish fleeces used in it, and then how I could translate that into my actual knitting, specifically hand knitting. And then since there, it's grown into education in person, first of all, because I do a lot of tours and I'm teaching people about the mills, about the yarn, about Irish knitting, just actually getting the needles into their hands. And more recently, it's becoming a much more comprehensive thing. So while we started with just the patterns and a little bit of teaching, by having an actual full online community and video workshops and patterns to back it up, it's very, very comprehensive and inclusive. So the clubs that we were talking about happened accidentally, and I realized there was actually a huge market and demand for Irish wool, and because people wanted the story. So the first one I did was in 2020, Celtic Knits Club. And it was one I put up, didn't know how it was going to go, and it was very successful, and people really were interested in the story. They were interested in the wool. So the wool I'm wearing here is our Blasta wool, so that's 60% Irish fleece, 40% New Zealand, so kind of tying back to the blend of things. And when people got into their hands, they're like as a knitter, you're worried about what it's going to feel like, because you don't have a lot of time, so that when you knit, you want it to feel good, you want it to be tactile, because it's a luxury. Knitting isn't a luxury, not a necessity now. So it's a very different approach to where it would have originally come from. So when someone picks it up, it has to feel good. And the blast, I think, does that job. It's like, it's not as soft as merino, but it's soft enough to knit with. And when you wash it, it gets softer, and explaining that to people. And then the more recent one, last year, we did the Galway Blanket project, which was specifically the Galway Wool Co-op. And that was, again, it was about the story. It was about getting the wool into people's hands and letting them know the history of the sheep in Ireland and what was happening in Ireland. And it kind of opened the door to a lot of very interesting discussions. Yeah, so it's been very good feedback. And then again with knitting, to start with the story will sell the wool, but what it feels like and what it knits, how it wears and how it feels when you're knitting with it is what's going to bring people back to get it again past that first purchase. So you need to have both, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to journey from that world of knitting and how the blends perform beautifully to the world of weaving, Rosy, and from design, weaving, tailoring over 150 years, you know, Magee has been forging ahead and looking to its heritage, sort of in sort of simultaneously, I suppose, driving that strong message forward, and always championing the natural fibers of linen and wool. And for you, where have you found that lovely fit for Irish-grown wool? As we know, as we discussed yesterday, and we're alluding to today, you know, 100% Irish wool is not the answer for every product, absolutely not. But there are wonderful ways that we can look to incorporate it through good design and I suppose, yes, championing those lovely natural attributes.
Absolutely, and I think for us, you know, it's important to say it was a reintroduction. You know, it was Magee's was started by a cousin in the 1860s. Story will skip the last 150 years in detail, but you know, that's where, as Chris alluded to, Irish wool was really used. And then, kind of fast forward to the 1960s, 1970s, I go into our archives in the weaving mill in Donegal, and you see these beautiful Irish wool bonines, and then you see this falling out of favour as softer wool and sort of agricultural policies maybe shift towards a different use for the sheep, which is where it all starts, obviously. And then fast forward again to 2021, and what's exciting for a brand like us, and with things like the Irish Grown Wool Council, is suddenly, and then by degrees, there is a new relevance to provenance, to origin, to where raw materials come from, for you, for the person that is walking down the street. And that's where we see a real relevance to being able to actually use Irish wool through our collections again. So here we have an Emma coat in this sort of oat and barley, and this is about 60% Irish wool. This retails at over €500. We're pushing up. This is a quality product. This is made to last. This is slow fashion. This is ticking all of those boxes. And this is where we see Irish wool absolutely has a place. And it's all very well talking about the feel of it, but I'm just going to pass these round just so you guys get a sense. Don't worry, we're not going to be here all day. But I think this one, and Chris will correct me, this is 100%. One of these is 100% Irish wool. Feel it. It feels a little bit, and I hope there's no media here, it can be a little bit harder. We won't use the word scratchy, but it's definitely, this is going in the right way. This one over here, you've got an alpaca, and what else has my brother got on here? An alpaca and wool mix, and you can feel the softness, the difference. So we're aiming to get kind of from here across to somewhere here. We're not alpaca, we're not living in dry climates. We have a damper climate in Ireland. So it's about reaching that kind of average 29 micron. This is about 22, really soft, and this is, I think, at about 30-ish. So just have a feel of this, because we keep talking about tactile, and I think this will, I hope, give you guys confidence that Irish wool can develop and has a future across this community.
Thank you, Rosy.
getting overexcited. I'm going to sit down and be quiet now.
It's extremely exciting, and I'm so delighted we've got 3 days to focus on this. I feel like we could have a week and we still would barely scratch the surface of the potential here. It's absolutely wonderful to see, again, the innovation in yarn and the focus around beautiful outerwear products, and we have a lovely styling of the Galway wool scarf along with the beautiful Magee pieces here on display as well. And if we were to take a leap, I know, Rosy, you're an avid trail runner and sea swimmer, and sort of thinking of the wild outdoors and the beauty of the west of Ireland. And the coast in general. I might leap to you, Alison, in terms of where we can see wool in the future. You know, we've got this absolutely stunning piece of composite material in front of us. And Alison and I were speaking yesterday about a phenomenal boat that may soon be taking to the sea, using these wonderful natural biofibers and all the innovation that goes along with researching the potential around Irish wool in these alternative spaces. So you might share a little bit on that research, Alison. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of obviously responsibility in the research space, and you know, we have to look at the UN sustainability goals, and one of them is responsible you know, production and consumption. So a lot of the funding that's available out there is looking at ways that we can take potentially what has been seen as waste and move it to non-waste. A lot of that, I think, it doesn't waste to begin with, actually, and Irish wool is in that category, I feel, and there's a lot of work going, you know, obviously going on in that space. But yes, we have the Belfast City deal as part of that deal. There's a project called Artemis, and they're looking to develop a catamaran-type boat that's going to bring people from Belfast to Bangor and down that coast. So they're taking them off the roads, essentially, and of course there's a lot of, you know, work in batteries and hybrids and electric cars and all of that, but they're actually taking them off the roads and putting them onto this sustainable boat. So it is quite cutting-edge technology, and I'm glad to say that part of that research is looking at natural fibre composites that could potentially be in the interior spec of that Artemis boat, and part of that is this, and this is actually a mix of hemp and Irish wool and bioresins. This particular piece is going in, it's more geotextiles. I was awarded some funding to create a roof garden on the Belfast campus. We have a lovely new build there, 350 million times a couple of noughts, I think. But it's a brilliant campus, new campus. So they have not a lot of outdoor space because it's a city campus, but they have a roof garden. And I thought, oh, with that funding, let's do some testing of the composites in an outdoor space to see, you know, how that could potentially perform in the elements as you. But there's been a lot of interest in this, and you can see how it could potentially be in interior spaces like bathrooms and kitchens, on floors. The architects are very interested in it. It could have relevance to autos. So I think that fibre technology, I actually think textiles should be a foundational industry. It's not in Northern Ireland. We are pushing for it to be a foundational, because to me fibre is foundational to everything we do. You know, if you think about it, from what we put on our bodies to what we put in our building materials, and the whole idea of lightweighting and, you know, the biodegradability of the materials that we use are essential to our well-being. You know, what we're breathing in, and we've seen it, you know, obviously with Blue Planet, the microplastics. I think I read the other day there's 250,000 microplastics in a plastic bottle, and we just lift that and drink that. So we need to think about all of these things, and I know that the Irish Grown Wool Council is absolutely thinking about that, and wool is, I know, don't want to make you feel bad or anything, and obviously there is a use, you know, for polymers, but we want to move towards more biopolymers, and wool actually has a part to play in that as well. So it's very exciting. I think we're in a lovely, it's challenging, it's not without its challenges, but it's actually moving in the right direction. I think I was reading, I mean, I'm not very good at statistics, but some of them are horrifying. And, you know, the whole idea of the oil-based textiles industry is accelerating at a pace that we're going to have 67% more oil-based garments in the world by 2030. And we have something like 67 billion going to landfill at the moment. And that's going to accelerate to 120 billion if we don't do something about it pretty soon. And wool can answer that question because it is biodegradable. It is, we've seen, it's super soft, it's super comfortable, but it can also be like Irish wool, robust. I like to use the word robust.
Is a lovely word.
And, you know, and it is a robust fibre, and it can be used for lots of, you know, in our beautiful carpets we saw, in the rugs yesterday, with, you know, all the talks that we had there. And I do think that we need to, you know, and you are here, and you are here, you are probably the willing and wanting to change. And while things seem expensive, actually, there is a bigger cost if we don't change what we're doing. The cost is huge, and I think we need to get back to buying better and buying less, and I think we just need to change and last longer. And actually something that's really important to us and has relevance, whether it's handmade, you know, is important. But yes, so we have that. We have obviously the knitting and the weaving and those wonderful industries, but we also have a future for our fibre.
Absolutely. And I think that idea, what we spoke to yesterday with our expert panelists, Nairi is with us today from Nairi Takano from Belgium, and has phenomenal expertise on circular scouring, and she'll be speaking again on the panel tomorrow. So I do encourage you to come and join us for that talk. And we also had Jane Harkness-Bones from Ulster Wool, and I suppose talking around that grading and sorting of wool and understanding the value that exists across the entire fleece. Yes, we talked to the beautiful woven textiles, the lovely knitting yarns. When we can sort of, I suppose, grade and understand those long staple fibres and what best use they can be put to, but then the fibres that are often deemed waste, those shorter staple fibres, the fantastic uses that we can see. And I might come to you, Michael, on that front, because as a farmer yourself, you have such a raft of knowledge when it comes to sheep and shearing and the performance qualities of wool across the whole fleece. And in terms, I suppose, of those health benefits that you spoke to, that you've been exploring with Irish-grown wool for Woolow, you might talk to us a little bit more about those benefits and how you've, I suppose, seen the customers receive the product over the last few years.
Well, many of us would struggle with poor sleep for many reasons, like stress or respiratory issues such as asthma, allergies, hay fever. And I always felt that sleeping on wool would make a difference. And I guess why. The benefit of wool is that it's renewable. The sheep grows a new fleece every year. It's recyclable. It can be upcycled and into different products. But it's also biodegradable. It breaks down into the soil within 6 months and very good for soil structure and composition. The benefits of wool. It's a fantastic fibre. Wool is it's a natural fibre. It's designed to breathe, in a sense that it wicks away moisture and prevents the growth of allergens and bacteria. One of the problems with synthetic materials is that, particularly where we sleep for a third of our lives, and our pillow is the closest to our airways for a third of our life. And one of the problems with synthetic fibres is that it retains moisture when we breathe in, and creates a haven for the growth of allergens, bacteria, and dust mites. The benefit of wool is that because it wicks away the moisture, the wool stays dry, so allergens, bacteria will not grow in the wool. The nature of the bristles on the wool also is very good at repelling dust mites. So from that point of view, it's a really good material to sleep on. So we've been creating we started off creating our wool pillows, and the feedback from our customers was very positive. It's very sustainable, and I think it has a great future.
Absolutely. And I think, Michael, you're probably preaching to the converted here, and hopefully a room full. But I suppose in terms of that sustainability message and that greater buy-in, you've recently embarked on a partnership with Hastings Hotels, I believe, who are stocking your product.
That's right. The Hastings Group, which includes the Coniston and the Grand Central, actually have our King pillows in stock. Actually, Jean has a sample of it.
I think, yes, there's a pillow circulating. No nodding off the back.
You know, customers and guests require that businesses have a sustainable compass. And, you know, it's not a nice to have anymore for businesses to have. It's a definite requirement for businesses to have sustainability as part of their business strategy, and that's what the Hastings Group liked about what we do at Woolow, is that we're very much sustainable.
Fantastic, yeah, and congratulations. I think and it's a positive message that we need to be seen, driven through. Superb. And I suppose looking to that sort of buy-in and partnership, again, it comes back to collaboration. And Chris, I know you've been partnering recently with one of our Wool Hub members, Eve Savage, who's going to be contributing to the panel tomorrow. And that sort of focus, I suppose, in education and awareness around wool and the project that you've been working on with her. I know Eve will be here herself tomorrow, but would you be able to share a little bit in terms of how that project came about and the importance of education when it comes to visiting mills, understanding the industry that has been thriving here for generations and has such a positive future?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of these keywords: sustainability, traceability, provenance. Going on. I look at sort of Ireland as the island of Ireland. And in sporting context, the theme "Team of Us." So the collaboration side of things, it's very important. Engaging, education, the consumer, educating the consumer about the benefits of wool. Secondly, then engaging with the young people coming through the universities, and then from a technical background, the resources that are there within the various different institutions. So I was approached by Katrina, because I think we were all on this, the textile working group with Rosy and Patrick on changes about the environment, and Pat was representing the Irish Grown Wool Council. So yes, wool is 100% biodegradable. We're looking at our waste stream, and we probably generate somewhere in the region of about 5% waste wool per annum. And one of the projects was, what can we do with that? Yes, we do send it over to the UK. It ends up getting reprocessed and could be in BMWs or as an underlay for carpets. But I thought, is there any way from a revenue stream, because it's costing us to get rid of it and send it over, additional shipping costs. So the project was, could we look at, again, we're talking about blends, could we take our 100% waste, recycle it, and make a product? So people will remember the old donkey jacket or a shoddy yarn. It's called a shoddy yarn. So we're very fortunate that we have a technical manager who's designed a yarn for NASA a number of years ago. And Steve is just an amazing person, and we're very fortunate to have him working at the mill. We said, let's do some adjustments to the machine. And we discussed, it's a technical fiber as much as it is for clothing and apparel, and it's the performance. There's no point in producing a recycled garment that you wear it once and then all of a sudden you see, we know natural fibers pill. So there's metrics that have to be there for upholstery fabrics. You have crib tests, Martindale tests. So we took different merino products. We took the Irish wool and our existing Kilcara tweed blend, which is a mix of New Zealand wool with some Norwegian, but we've actually been able to substitute now. We're not marketing it because I can't get the quality and the grade. So we've done various different blends and knit the garments. Very fortunate to be very close to a very good knitter in Ireland who's knitted all the same knitting tensions. We've sent it off to get the testing, and actually the performance is excellent. And what I'm trying, it's to encourage us to look at our waste. You know, there's got the sort of the extended producer responsibility for waste is coming down the line, that we have to do something with our wool. And if we can sort of collaborate with likes of Magee's, or any other weavers, knitwear companies, to recycle this into a product that is still going to perform. An example could be in the public sector, making blankets for the prison service, or making the performance of a yarn is to do with the twist and how much, so for the abrasion and the rub, so you could make upholstery fabrics out of it for refurbishing office suites. So, I mean, it's endless. We talk it as a wonder fibre, which it is, but the importance of working with the universities, and we've got with Tim, who's here tomorrow, we're looking at plasma coatings, not bio plasma coatings, which is going to hopefully help even increase and opportunities for us to develop more product for wool as an outdoor product, potentially with maybe waterproofing. So
fantastic. Yeah. And I suppose key to this is that expertise and knowledge across so many different areas. And when it comes to that side of things, you know, the expertise that exists in the mills that over the years, Rosy, has, you know, you've fostered in Magee in relation to design and technical expertise of your weavers. Do you see going forward, as we look to the future of Irish grown wool as so vibrant and so full of potential, those, I suppose, the weavers, the knitting mills, industry that is, I suppose, supporting employment across regions that are often rural, often isolated, what further supports could, you know, the industry use going forward as we look into this exciting chapter?
Thank you, and I meant to add, I'm really stepping in for my brother here, who is the technical man. He also is sheep farming by night and weaving by day. So just to understand the full cycle. But I think just starting on the supports front, just on a very basic front, as Chris and as everybody has alluded to, the supports certainly start within our community, and it's been great working with Donegal Yarns over the last number of years. So I think that is obviously the base, but more specifically at the actual support area for industry, it is really about looking right back to that origin of the sheep, and looking at how we can set about that cultural shift towards sheep in Ireland, not just being there for meat. I've no problem eating lamb, I love lamb, but that there is a different metric of value so that we can add value back into this chain to make it work all the way to the end consumer. So you have things like, I think it's called the, just getting Patrick's notes here, the Sheep Improvement Scheme, and that within that microns should be added as a value metric, because we need farmers, and I'm not a farmer myself, so I don't want to be sounding naive here, but we need Irish farmers to have better incentives to be able to look towards breeding, towards wool that we can use through all of the different usages that have been touched on today. So it is going back to that agricultural policy, the farming, and getting that cross-sectoral support. And then going all the way through the cycle, it really is about what can industry create and make appealing for us as end customers to actually wear. Because if people don't buy this product at the end, we don't get that commercial revenue coming back in. And that is essential to make sure that this survives into the future. So I think industry supports. It is about events like this. It is about working with the Design Craft Council. It is about getting that education message out across all the different touch points. And I think we've all seen that variety today of how we can get the feel of Irish wool onto people's Instagram's pages, into their phones, and then into their hands. And that should come full cycle, that when you're driving across Ireland in a few years and you see sheep on the fields, that they're not just for lamb chops, and that's where we need to be working towards.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's exactly where things need to be headed. And we heard yesterday from Jane in relation to some of the training and supports that are the folks in the drive with Ulster Wool. And I think in the coming weeks, months, I'd encourage everyone to sort of stay tuned in relation to supports that are going to be hopefully becoming available through the Irish Grown Wool Council. So exciting chapters, I suppose, that will encompass, as you said, Rosy, it was engagement across all stakeholders, thinking from the farmers all the way through to that understanding that fibre technology and real, I suppose, knowledge of the innovation capacity that you touched on, Alison. And maybe Alison, to speak to that a little bit in terms of your student groups that you're working with, and while I think it's extremely challenging as a student when you want to drive innovation and create and develop, the next best thing, to also have that eye on circular design and thinking around concepts of, I suppose, zero waste, for example, that knitting lends itself so well to. How are you finding that your students are sort of balancing these concepts and managing to drive their innovation and design thinking forward, but also with the wider understanding of how we need to design conscientiously for a changing planet?
Well, I think there are a number of ways, that we kind of come at this, but essentially, I remember when I first started to teach, it was all about colour. Colour was the first thing that any student really saw. So if they lifted a cone of yarn or whatever, they wouldn't actually understand that it was a cotton or a wool or a synthetic or a silk or whatever. So I think getting back to the essentials, which is the fibre content, and then understanding the weights of fibre and the appropriateness of that. And I think once they grasp that, intrinsically, those students, like engineering students, I think actually want to be part of the solution, not be continuing in the way that we're going. And so I think essentially that is what they want to do. So in a way, it's an easy sell. But there are, the difficulties are, where do you go? Is it dead stock? Where are you going for, your yarn? And if it is yarn that's been spun here, how do you go about engaging with those stakeholders? So that means that they actually have to go out into the industry and then speak to the industry, which is fantastic, because obviously that's where potentially they may end up. And I think that there are a lot of new employment opportunities actually out there that potentially have not been available before in terms of research as well. So they come in thinking it's all about design, it's all about making garments or maybe some interior product or whatever. It's also the digital side of things as well, and understanding how that can be potentially exploited to reduce any waste. And I think that there are lots of opportunities in that sphere. But I think that we have a job to do in changing perceptions of our fashion and textile industry, and to showcase, that there are locally, it's about contracting the supply chain really, and about trying to keep everything as close as we possibly can, in terms of bring what our materials are to start with, whether that's in the costume industry or wherever sector that you're working in, health and well-being or wherever, and how we contract that supply chain and what we can get locally. If it's not available locally, how can we start to make that happen? And it is then saying to the students, you can make this happen. This is a possibility, and to do a bit of that kind of future scoping, and actually engaging with governments, local councils, community groups, because we can see if we start to pull together and there is a willing participatory motivation towards improving our general scenario, what we're kind of in at the moment. I think there is a power, and there is a power in making. So there is a power in that.
There is a fantastic power in making, and certainly it's that, again, that sort of collaborative aspect of bringing all partners together and having the knowledge and awareness of what is sort of accessible in terms of new evolving resource streams, that you touched on, Chris, in terms of, what you would call industry waste, but for someone else that is a brand new resource stream and the innovation capacity that exists within it. And I suppose in terms of that creativity and fostering that side of things through the community that exists in your makers, Carol, are they involved? Do they engage in the pattern development? I feel like there's a lovely opportunity, while Alison spoke to that sort of, I suppose, community and keeping things closer together. There's also that wonderful opportunity for remote and disparate communities to connect in with a single story, a shared thread, and develop something together as a collective.
Yeah, it's because you touched on digital, and digital allows you to open it up to the world. It's like it's not just a small area, so that a small story can become international, and we're a very small country. Like, most people who sell things here know that just selling within Ireland is going to keep for a very small business usually. So generally, most businesses here tend to reach outwards. And digital allows you to do that. You can keep it local, but actually have a much bigger reach. And then when you have people kind of coming in, if you've got somebody who has learned about the wool or about what you're doing, and then they travel over here, the story becomes quite circular, and it actually helps, I think, within Ireland when people outside see the value that they maybe didn't even know was there. Because often I'll have people locally will pick it up, and if you're used to a synthetic fibre, they're designed to be soft. Like, that's their purpose. You pick it up, it is supposed to be soft. And if you're not used to wool and some more natural fibres, it's not going to have the same degree of immediate tactile softness. So it is about retraining, education, and understanding the different benefits that you get from it, and doing that on a larger scale, international, Instagram, and in our Nick community, talking about the benefits and what you want from wool is really important. But it's all education to me. It's no matter where you do it from, whether it's university or whether it's talking to customers or talking to other knitters in a community group. You're educating them about the other benefits and how it can become sustainable and what you're doing, and where it goes back to with farmers, where if you take our Irish wool, then the farmers can go and they can actually get a better price for their fleece, which then has an impetus to improve the fleece. And so you get this lovely circular thinking going on, and giving people that control, like students as well, that if they go out to industry and know that I have control, if I go out and I actually can say, this is what I want to work with, and I can talk from the farmer up to the mill, up to the weavers, you've got input in the whole process, and it benefits everyone, I think.
And empowers everyone as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the wonderful thing. We've heard so many tales over the last few years of farmers, bringing their wool to merchants, and I think to see Irish wool begin to flourish and be valued by the producers and growers of the wool, and through that sort of knowledge exchange and communities such as Stolen Stitches, innovation that we're seeing in universities and through the likes of the Wool Hub, and the fascinating collaborations and focus around the future of design of these wonderful products that we see. I think, across the board, we've witnessed it from the beautiful tapestries and carpets of Rhyme Studios, Magee's beautiful work here, and this is a Stolen Stitches piece we have up front as well. I think we've got some Malloy & Sons, the Galway, we've got wool from all over, and I just think, as I say, I think we could spend a week here on this stage and back to your point, Carol, on education, I suppose it's opportunities to share in conversations like this, even over the last 2 days. As much as I come from a farming background myself, I'm a knitter, I'm a textile designer. Every day I'm learning, and it's so wonderful to share the stage with experts such as yourself, and the speakers that we have over the next day and yesterday as well. Such a raft of knowledge. And I suppose on that, I'd like to thank you all extremely. Thank you for sharing your passion, your thoughts, your hopes for the future of Irish-grown wool. I'm conscious that we're tight on time today, so I might open to the floor for questions and answers. For any of you who'd like to pose a question to our panel here, you are very welcome. There's a roving mic, so throw up a hand and get involved.
Congratulations. My question is on green procurement and government procurement. We have legislation, but how do we translate that into products that are made here?
You,
Chris?
Sorry. Just to come on that, the Irish Grown Wool Council, as part of, we've formed, we have different subgroups, and there's the funding and going to speak to the various different ministers. So I think how do we translate that? I think it's through discussion, communication. I think the fact that we're here today and such the knowledge base that exists on the island and the expertise and understanding the benefits of it, instead of going abroad and if it's, say, refurbishing of office buildings, to understand that all the resources to do that are here. Now, the expertise, the skill, the technical, so it's coming together, identifying, engaging with the government and the support and the funding that's available. But we have a responsible working with the universities, explaining to them that we can meet their demands, but it's really presenting it to the ministers in the right way on a professional level. So.
Thank you, Deirdre. Does anyone else want to come in on that, or are there any other questions we'd like to go to? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to say I was here a year ago and told everybody that Feltmakers Ireland was making a new book about Irish wool. I just wanted to say we did it. It's here. It goes through 40 breeds of Irish sheep, or Irish reared sheep, not native, and how they felt. And we were told a lot of them would never felt, and we found, well, with determination, it works. And if you're interested, we're still selling the book.
Fantastic. It's a lovely book. My neighbour Mary Cooper features in that lovely publication. So, yeah, well done and congratulations.
Clearly, there's quite a job in developing the Irish farmed wool sector, Chris, insofar as that our clip is quite small at the moment. And that's one factor. And then we have another factor of the robust quality of our wool. And the third factor being that there are products that this wool lends itself to. Does our government recognise, one, the value of wool as a recyclable, sustainable fibre, and two, does it see the primary producers as important, and what will Irish Grown Wool Council do about attracting, let's say, this type of support that the UK gives to the primary producer for the weight of its wool? And clearly it's a very complex situation. We need to encourage more softer wool breeds. They do exist. This lady has just indicated that there are up to 40 in Ireland, regardless of whether they're indigenous or native. We know ourselves that most of the sheep here were brought in a boat at one stage. But that aside, I suppose what I'm really asking is, what can we do? You're both, well, actually, everybody on the stage has a commercial direction, but also congratulations and thank you for your interest in developing Irish native wool or Irish farmed wool. So what can be done as a first step and a second step in the immediate term to improve and increase the Irish clip?
Yeah. Well, I think as we discussed yesterday, I think wool only represents something like 2% of the global textile industry. We have approximately, I think, 10 million kilos of greasy wool on the island. Obviously, as a global commodity, it's the supporting and working with the farmers. Literally, we had yesterday we had Fergal on the stage talking about his story, the organic. When I went at school, I did religious studies rather than politics, and I don't want to get into the politics side of things here today. It's just everybody identifying the reality, and as you say, Irish wool in this current form is a very strong, robust, the average micron being from, I would say, the lowest. We've had to sort of collaborate with the wool merchants, so Kevin, who unfortunately has got one leg up resting at the minute, we worked with all the wool, the greasy wool that he's getting from the farmers and buying. We had to establish lots of different breeds, a mixture of textiles, lowland wools, because to make the fine Irish, we call it fine Irish, but relative to merino, it's not fine. To make that grade, they had to probably purchase somewhere in the region of about 20,000 kilos. Grade it, number one, on the island here. They packed it, baled it up because there's no scoring facility in the country, shipped it over to our partners in the UK, Standard Wool. And actually, Kevin thought he did a very good job in grading it, but when I spoke to the merchant, he actually said to me, Chris, I'm going to have to take about 20% off this to make the grade that you need, which is the metric. So Rosy alluded to, it's 3 measurements: color, vegetable matter, and fiber length, and then the micron, which is the diameter. So breed specific's important. We've seen examples here today of blends of a blue-faced Leicester, the Romney. You've got the Clodagh breed. There's the Roscommon, the Galway. Lots of different breeds, and it's the farmer. First of all, it's trying to support the farmer. We will pay the premium. Roughly at the minute, to import wool from New Zealand, from we're talking thousands of miles. It's traveling, and more now because it can't go through what's going on in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. It's costing us about 25% more than getting the wool from New Zealand landed to these shores. So we will pay the premium, but the consumer has to understand the value chain. We want to support the farmers. And it's education. And we don't have all the resources here on the island, so partnering with Ulster Wools, I mean, we've been asked as a subgroup to look at the traceability, which was talked about yesterday, the European passports and the QR codes. So again, we can add value to that and pay a premium for those farmers that actually register to supply, that they're looking after not just the welfare of the animals, but the soil, their practices on the farm. So, we have to start somewhere. I keep referencing it to, it's like we're going back to the future. We're we're reinventing the supply chain and adding the value. And if everybody gets that small, takes a small piece of the margin that's there, and take pride and passion in what we do. Every maker here today and manufacturer is so proud of what they display. We're very fortunate to have the product on many stands. We're now looking at international markets and going wider through internet channels, the social media. I mean, we have the technology as well. We have a rug company now in Holland, collaborating with a sustainable textile designer, launching 100% Irish wool on an international stage in luxury rugs, very similar to the concept that Claire and there's Cadogan rugs are all doing. And the opportunities are endless. But it's hopefully I've answered the question to you. We could talk for hours, and
we could talk for hours, and I'm afraid we are out of time. But I think what we've demonstrated is it takes that collective energy, and there are a few missing pieces. What I'd encourage everybody tomorrow is, if you'd like to hear a little bit more on that future of innovation, particularly in the scouring space, which we know is a stumbling block for Irish-grown wool at the moment, then please do join us tomorrow. We'll have Tim Yeomans from Shannon ABC, who's going to speak more to that, and our international expert, Nairi Takana, who is going to also be sharing her expertise and knowledge in that space. I'd like to say thank you to our panel of experts. You've been absolutely wonderful sharing your insights and knowledge. Huge thank you to the Design and Crafts Council of Ireland for hosting us here at Showcase. And I look forward to tomorrow and bringing the message of Irish-grown wool to a new group, and hopefully to some of you returning to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.